weird, wonderful, the stuff for which movies were made. Adventure, to make you wonder if it's true, while your eyes convince you that it is. Truly, the thrill of thrills.
Horror Hounds, welcome to the Classic Horror Podcast, episode 23. And following on from last week's episode, as promised, we are doing 1933's King Kong. Doesn't really need any introduction. One of the most famous monster films of all time, up there with Godzilla. For some people, even more well-known, even more famous than Godzilla. I love this film. I've seen it a few times, but haven't actually seen it in quite a while until I went back for my rewatch. So, yeah, I love this film. And I believe, Michael, this was your first watch of the original.
Please, film internet, don't kill me. But yeah, I had never actually seen it from front to back. I had of course seen chunks because coming up when I came up, I watched a lot of television programs about the making of cinema, and being as into stop motion, oh my god, we're gonna get into that, as I am, like I'd seen like even some more sequences, but it was one of those that like I do not think it would have affected me like it affected me right now if I had seen it even before we started this podcast, just because I probably would have been a little too kicked in the face with the, theatricality of the performances and laughing at some of the incredibly culturally outdated,
Oh,
uh,
yes,
incredibly culturally outdated
yes.
things that take place. But I mean, my overall reactions were like, I couldn't. 3 times I was like, why didn't anybody tell me that this is a fucking Marvel movie? Like the money on the screen, the special effects,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
like I had no idea that it was essentially an action film. Did not know that.
yeah.
Like if you had told me, "Oh, you know what? You're going to watch a movie from 1933 and three separate occasions you're going to go, that's so fucked up." I would absolutely like you're lying. But like three separate times in this movie, I turned to my girlfriend. I was like, did they just? Holy shit! Like, anyway,
Oh, I love that, man. I
yeah,
love that. What a great reaction. That's the reaction like I hope for when you or anyone does when you introduce someone to a film they haven't seen before that you love. And yeah, man, great reaction. As you said, yeah, on a side note, there are some very outdated items within this film that goes without saying, unfortunately.
Dude.
However, there is still a lot to admire from this film. So where I'm going to kick off is with the screenplay in a way, because I want your opinion of the overall story. But in my opinion, this is one of the greatest examples and clearest examples of a free act structure,
I was like, it's
because
a
it is
perfectly written
essentially,
film.
yeah,
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
essentially broken up into three perfect parts. You have New York and the boat leading up to Skull Island, and then back in New York for the presentation of the eighth wonder of the world and
Tickets
the
cost me
destruction
$20.
that follows. What a great like setup, right? That is a perfect three act structure to follow. So simple. Each section really stands on its own. I think you can admire each individual section. There's a lot of great stuff on the boat. There's some incredible stuff on Skull Island, and then the
Jeez.
ending, obviously the ending, one of the most famous endings in film history. It really is. So how
Absolutely.
did, obviously you were aware, you were probably aware of the setup, but watching it front to back, how did that play for you, and how did you initially react to that compared to some of the other kind of act structures you've seen throughout these classic horror films?
I like I said, I felt it was perfectly written. Like it couldn't, if somebody's like, how should I structure a script? What's one thing I should watch? This. There's a million different
Yeah,
choices that you could
yeah,
make, but if you want to know how to like the giant cat, the disposable cast that you didn't realize was disposable until they start getting disposed of all over the place.
Yeah,
Like everything is given just enough that the parts that need to feel important do, and even the rest of the parts don't feel completely unnecessary at first. Like that, again, not to harp on it, but like with the thing from another world, I'm like, why is there a cast of 12
yeah,
people playing
yeah,
one person? And this was a large cast, and but we only have like the couple of main players, and
of
let's be
course.
honest here, you only need the one,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and like Feyre is just next level great in this. Now, admitted, it is some of the most quintessential early screen talkie acting, which is to say, you're not gonna be like, oh, look at little Meryl Streep, like, but I mean, she's Scream Queen Patient Zero. You know what I mean?
yeah. I
Like,
mean, this is the blueprint, man. This is the blueprint. This what she's doing on screen. Like you said, talkies weren't around for that long, so for her to come in and give this performance, and yeah, I mean, the main players in this cast, I think are incredible. From Faye Ray to Robert Armstrong as Carl Denham.
wait, that's the
Again,
director, right?
that's the director. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah.
I
Great, right?
my notes. I really like him. I love Jack Black because I actually like. I'm one of those few fools that really liked Peter
Oh,
Jackson's King Kong,
I
but
love Peter
also
Jackson's King Kong.
I hadn't seen this version, and so when Peter Jackson, and I'm aware of Peter Jackson and not his entire work, like body work at that time, but I had seen Frighteners Forward, and I might have seen Bad Taste.
Okay, yeah,
So like I knew enough to be like that guy, that guy, that guy,
yeah,
and I really liked it. And all these complaints that I heard, I didn't understand, and so and I get the reason I could watch stuff again and again is because like I retain little bits of information. I was impressed because I've only like I saw that once in theaters, and I think I saw it once on like it might have even been VHS at the time. You know what I mean?
okay, yeah.
And but as I'm sitting here watching this one, I was like, oh shit, there's the Slug Swamp. Like it's the same movie. It's just a little longer and bigger budget. What's everybody's problem with this thing?
I've never understood that. I've never understood why, because it's weird. Like I remember when that film came out, the initial critic reaction I saw was great. Right? It was like there was like 5-star reviews and it was brilliant. And I remember going to the cinema to watch it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I still love that. I actually watched it the other night after watching the original. I went back
Okay.
to watch Peter
The
Jackson's one.
theatrical cut or the extended one? I have that, but I haven't
The
watched it.
extended. Yeah, I watched the extended cut. I
So that
I
that
love
extra
it.
half an hour is worth it. Like I should crack out my DVD.
Yeah, it's well worth it, man.
Okay.
Look, this is a thing. Like it is a little bit bloated. There's some stuff that they definitely could chop out. But if you really want to like go in and escape within this film, I love Peter Jackson's versions. I think
Yeah.
Naomi Watts is incredible. Adrian Brody, Jack Black, you name it. I really like it. I personally really, really like the film. But like you said, I love the way it's essentially a beat for beat remake, which it never was intended to be.
Okay.
So after he made The Frighteners,
Oh, I love
he
the Frighteners.
actually got, oh yeah, great. He actually got offered by Universal either a remake of King Kong or Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Really?
and he had no interest in Creature. So he wanted to do King Kong.
I could see Peter Jackson not wanting to do a creature. I could
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that.
definitely. So they actually started developing it, and the story was completely different. It was more. He's described it as more along the lines of the Mummy remake with Brendan Fraser. It was
Which
more
I
of like,
also really like, but
yeah, I
that's
do.
another
I really
story.
like it. Yeah, and very of that time. That late '90s kind of comedy action. It makes sense, right? So
Oh,
it was
it's
more
yeah.
like that, and
It's late enough in the '90s that it just took everything you think of as
yes,
'90s and
yes.
gave you the best possible version of
Yeah,
it.
completely agree. Completely agree. And Darrow in it was not an actress. She was I believe she was like an archaeologist or something like that.
The
Yeah,
Rachel
it still
Weisz, you
had
mean?
Cole
Yeah,
Denham
yeah,
in it
yeah.
as the director, but I think Jack Driscoll was also an archaeologist, maybe in that version of it. Anyway,
I believe so. Yeah.
that got shut down because Universal learned that the year it was meant to come out, a Godzilla film was also coming out, and a Mighty Joe Young film was coming out, and
Oh,
they would,
Disney did do Mighty Joe Young. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they would have been released after that, so they didn't want to be like the third
They didn't want to be the one
movie
that
in that,
everybody's
like,
going to be
yeah, so
for.
they
Yeah.
shut it down. And then amazingly, he went on to make Lord of the Rings, which he says that if they had made King Kong, he never would have done Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically, because Lord of the Rings was such a huge success, Universal said to him, "What do you want to do? What's your?" And he said, "Well, I want to do Kong." And he said one of the things that a lot of people think is that his ultimate project was Lord of the Rings, and that isn't true. King Kong was his ultimate project. I mean, if you can track down the and for anyone listening, if you're interested in filmmaking, track down the ultimate edition. Maybe there's a DVD of it, but the Blu-ray with all the special features, it's the best special features you'll ever see. There's a 3-hour making of.
You're talking about
There,
the extended Kong. Yeah, I have that set. That's the one I
yeah,
have. Yeah.
yeah. There's like a 3-hour making of. There's like a free 4-hour production diary from like
That's
every
yeah.
single
It's Peter
day.
Jackson. That sounds
Oh
accurate.
man, it's insane. It's so good. It's one of the best making ofs you'll ever see in your life. But just his passion for it, and a lot of what I bringing this back to the original, a lot of what I know and a lot of trivia that I learned around the original actually comes from those special features.
Okay.
Because yeah, I don't know if you know, but Peter Jackson actually owns some of the original stop
The
motion
yeah, I did.
markets.
I did
Yeah,
know this. Yeah.
yeah. So he's actually, he's a huge fan, man. But yeah, getting back to the original, I mean, there's the jumping off point, right? So you were
Mhm.
saying about Peter Jackson put a lot of that into it. Famously, we've got to talk about the log scene, right? The log scene in the original.
Oh my God! No, no, 100%. That was one of the 3 times I went. This is so fucked up.
Right, right. Go on then. Jump into that. How
I
did
just
that?
because like I mean, granted, again, it was made when it was made. So when you're seeing 8, 10 people being shook off a log and tossed off a cliff, it's a tiny little literal rag doll that's just hitting the bottom of a ravine. But also, 1933, people don't know that.
Yeah,
They just see people being shaken off a log by a giant ape, and I mean, and it's a long sequence. I mean, it's a solid what, like 90 seconds, 2 minutes
yeah,
of just
yeah, yeah,
screaming in terror followed
yeah,
by death.
yeah,
Like, dude, like there's no blood. It's not Saw, but damn, that was fucked up. Like,
yeah. And what an incredible sequence the way that's designed with the actors on the log, it being shaken around, and then
right?
obviously the stop motion of Kong in the background shaking it. The way that is just put together, and it just
Yeah.
works
The
so
way they figured out
well.
that edit, like, I mean, you probably know way more about it than I mean, like, if you're to film, you can see where it's like some of it is like the static foreground, if you will, and then they got
Oh, of
they
course, yeah,
in quote composite because there was no
yeah,
composite. They had to cut
yeah,
that shit
yeah.
by hand. But like, had they done a lot of that kind of stuff with like the forced perspective, where it's like Kong stop motion in the front room or front room in the foreground, and then in the background is like the fake hand holding Fay Ray the actress? Like, had they done a
No,
lot of?
that was, well, oddly, a lot of that stuff, especially the log scene, actually, was actually developed for another film. That whole log sequence was developed for, I can't remember what the film is. I apologize, but they were developing another film, and it didn't happen. But a lot of that stuff was like the jungle setup and what becomes Skull Island, and like those beats, the big action set pieces. They were basically taken from the development of this other film and put into this. So it was kind of the first time people had really seen that stuff. And
Okay.
a reason why you actually have a lot of like dinosaurs and creatures of that nature in this film is actually because they were already made for this other project. And then
Okay.
this other project didn't happen, so they just brought them in and was like, Skull Island is inhabited by dinosaurs and Kong, and all this stuff. So that sequence was actually developed for something else, and then they put it in it. And then if you recall back to the Peter Jackson version, once they're shaken off that log, they fall into the giant insect pit.
Dude, that is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah.
that slow Andy Serkis death.
Oh,
Come
it's amazing.
on.
It's amazing. So have you heard the rumors or the backstory about that scene that was meant to be in the original? It was originally called the Giant Spider Pit.
Wait, so you're saying in the version we're currently discussing from 33?
Yeah, so in
we're
the
supposed to be
original
similar?
version,
Oh,
yeah, so there was meant to be that scene basically, but it was like a giant spider pit. Now,
okay.
depending on where you get your information, it does vary if the scene was shot at all. Some people have said they've seen it. Other people say, well, actually, it was designed and then, Universal way to cut. But anyway, the grand scheme of it is they were thrown off the log, as you do see in Peter Jackson's version. They fall into this giant spider pit, and then these giant spiders rip them apart. Now, as the legend goes, at the first test screening, audiences were screaming and fainting and going mad at the scene because it was way too graphic. So that's why it was cut. Other people said that Universal cut it before that based on like concept art and that, with it being too graphic. Either way, that become known as the famous lost sequence of the original King Kong. So
Okay.
when Peter Jackson made his version of King Kong, he was committed to putting that in there. And then, fun fact, if you remember back to that scene in Peter Jackson's, that is where Carl Denham's camera gets broken. So then he has to make the character choice of, I no longer have a film. We now need to capture Kong and take him back to the island. And the reason Peter Jackson put that character or that whole story beat in that scene was so Universal couldn't cut it.
Well
Yeah,
played.
amazing,
Well
man.
played.
And if you can track it down, I'm sure it's online. It's on my Blu-ray of the original King Kong. Peter Jackson actually made a stop motion version that could technically be slotted into the original from the descriptions people gave of it. So there
Oh,
is a
goodness.
stop motion version of that sequence.
I must see this.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
Nice.
It's really, really good.
I
Yeah.
tried to get that Blu-ray, but that's not happening over here right now.
Oh, is it not? Oh, see, that's the weird
Talking
thing
about,
is that
the
me and you have
33 version,
discussed
right?
this. Yes, yeah, the
Yeah,
33
no,
version.
like
Yeah.
there was a Blu-ray that came in a literal book. And I just like I couldn't justify the cost at the time. And then I went to track down that version. I was even willing to pay double or a little more because I knew I would like it like I like it. Something just told me I would, and I not only could I not find it, I couldn't find it like aftermarket. It's like I
It's
can't
so
even
funny, isn't
find
it? Yeah.
pictures of the thing I know
Yeah.
exists. Like
It's so funny, man, because me and you have discussed this. I mean, we had this with Godzilla, right? Like the
yeah, we did.
original Japanese version is more available to you than it is to me. It was quite hard for me to find. I had to buy a DVD that was printed 15 years ago,
Yeah, see, it's just
and
flip.
it's crazy, man. Like the only Blu-ray version or modern, transfer of that Godzilla film you get is in a brand new Criterion box set that costs you about £200. So yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
worth it,
But
but that's
the
a lot of money.
original Kong, widely available over here, quite easy to pick up on Blu-ray. So
Okay.
yeah, it's funny how that changes between the US and the UK. I don't know why. You would think both of them would be widely available considering their historical significance. And you would expect that, like right now, with
I
like,
mean, really.
yeah, like Kong, Godzilla versus Kong in the cinema, like this huge event that is bringing people back to the cinema. You would think that DVD or Blu-ray companies would be buying up the rights to print these originals because this is the best time to sell them, right? Like people are going to buy them now that probably have no interest beforehand or in a few months' time after it. But yeah, there you go.
It
So
is
we
what it
touched on the log sequence. Effects overall, man, you've made no light work of your absolute love of stop motion animation.
Oh my god.
We
Absolutely.
spoke about a couple of episodes ago, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms with Ray Harryhausen and where he kicked that off. And I mentioned that he learned that and was under the watchful eye of a gentleman called Willis O'Brien, who is probably most famous for his work on King Kong. So, what was it like for you seeing that in all of its glory, start to finish?
Well, also, quick question. I don't even know if you know the answer to this. Did he have a team, or is this another like the one guy did all the shit?
No. So what's really weird on Kong is officially none of the special effects guys are even credited. It was one of those
Of
like
course
weird
not.
things, where exactly. So there's a lot of them. Like Willis O'Brien is like widely considered the main guy that really like headed it up, but there was like quite a lot of them on Kong. There was like loads of
Okay,
people
all
coming
right,
in and out.
that makes more sense. Because I was about to say, because like, regardless of what the answer is, like the level of technical like know-how and prowess. I mean, like when the T-Rex snarls, like for real,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I understand that a T-Rex wouldn't snarl, but it was a cool visual.
Yes, it
Like,
was. Yeah,
but just the subtlety of it all, like even like my eyes dart all over the frame in general. Like I mean, there's a filmmakers always have a focal point. They want you to look left, but there's other stuff going on in the frame if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So even in the giant action sequences, I would occasionally look on the extremes of the frame, and they had a tiny little stop motion Fay Ray like flailing in
yeah,
almost every
man. Yeah,
sequence.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they don't even need like even if they a lesser production might have still had the Fay Ray thing there, but it would have been static. They gave it life,
Life. Yeah,
and it just oh man, just all of it.
yeah. Like
Just
it's
all of it.
incredible, man. Like, and the combination of mainly mainly it's stop motion, but you've obviously got the giant Kong
The
animatronic
head.
hand.
Yeah.
You've got the head as well, which it's rumored that Willis O'Brien hated because of it just didn't really look right,
Because it
and
was so
the
slow. Okay.
yeah, the it just didn't really live up to his expectations of it. And it is, if I would say anything is the most jarring, it is those close-up shots of that giant Kong head.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's one that I felt worked really well. It's the one where he's like, where it like looks down at Fay Ray. But beyond
Yeah,
that, I
yeah.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I mean, I hold a little bit of love for it in my heart just because it reminds me of the old Universal ride where they
Yeah.
had the Kong animatronic that looked exactly like that. It was like exactly the
Yeah.
same.
I, I
So
I
yeah,
I did fortunately get to go on that a couple of times before that fucked up fire.
yeah, man, yeah, just completely
Have you
destroyed.
been on it since they did the 360 thing?
No, I haven't. No,
Dude, it's
I
pretty
next time
fucking
I go, I need
impressive.
to go. Yeah, I know. I've heard it's like really, really good. Yeah,
It's pretty
I
fucking
got to,
impressive.
I've got to get on that.
Universal's the one like theme thing down here that I've been to the most. Like, I've
Oh
been to,
man, yeah, I'm
I've been to
with
like a
you.
handful of like I've been to pretty much all the parks like once at least. But Universal, I mean, like shit, I've been there a bunch.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Yeah, so it reminds me of that, and I love that. But there's also some other stuff. Like there's the are they the brontosaurs, the really long neck dinosaurs?
It's
So you've
responsible
got
for one of my other that's so fucked up moments. Continue.
you've got some of them that are stop motion, but there's actually one of them where it's like coming out the water, and
Okay.
that's more of like an animatronic where they just built the top of the back and the neck, and then submerged the neck underwater, and then like when it lifts up.
And tell me you got hardcore aliens vibes off of that specific sequence and shot.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Because
definitely.
I
Yeah,
took that note. I was like, well, that's this looks exactly like the Xeno behind Newt. I'm
yes,
okay with
yes,
this. And
yeah,
and
yeah.
oh, I see you, James Cameron.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, you can again, man, you can really see where a lot of these directors we grew up admiring really get their influences.
Mhm.
Like you can really, really see how
What do they got
films
in
like
there? King
this,
Kong.
yeah, yeah, man,
You know
like
what I
they
mean?
just bleed into it. Oh yeah, it's great. It's amazing. But yeah, the effects overall, dude, they're just they
Well, it's
really,
like
really
the
bleed.
Brontosaurus thing, and the effects and just the melding of everything. The thing that got that so fucked up out of me out of the Brontosaurus is when he picks the guy out of the tree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And just like the way that they like cut really well, and you had the actor and the stuff going on behind it, and then the cut to the actual stop motion of it, the
yeah, man.
sound effect they decided to go with, like, oh dude.
Oh, the sound in this is great. Like when you consider this was made in 33,
I mean,
the sound in this is incredible. The score
the
is
cacophony
outstanding.
of the score. Like, cacophony is usually a bad word. No. This is it's perfectly cacophonous. It adds to the terror and the
Yeah,
everything going
yeah.
on. Like, yeah.
It's the design. I really, really love so much. About the way that comes together with the animatronics, the design of Skull Island, the sound design, the score, yeah, everything. It lights up your imagination today. Can you imagine what that was like in 33?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, if there's one thing that anybody that's listening could take and try to give to friends is like, just I understand you're gonna be laughing at it, but can you just try to contextualize, put yourself here, and then watch. If you can get that going on almost everything we've talked about, there's no reason it
Yeah.
won't work.
Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree. It's just, yeah, it's unbelievable, man. It really lives up. Like I said at the top of the show, I've seen this a few times, but I hadn't seen it in a very, very long time. And going back and, getting that Blu-ray, going back, watching it, it really does ignite your imagination. It shows you what is possible, just with real dedication. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
just like the
Just blown away by it.
lights your imagination up. Like the after they, okay, I'm sorry. The one nerdy note I was like, I don't care who you are, if you have a mass marketly produced rifle from the 1930s, the last thing that thing is gonna do is take down a giant stegosaurus. But
Yeah, yeah,
but when they fell that stegosaurus and then walk by its corpse, and the
yeah,
one guy
yeah,
actually reaches out and touches it.
yeah,
Just the way that they use the rear projection, and like if you're in the film, clearly they're on a treadmill or something. But just the fact that like they did that, and oh man, I don't know, like that sequence in particular, I probably watched it 3-4 times in a row. I was like, what is happening right now? Like,
yeah. It just, the whole thing just works. The whole thing just works, man. And we've just been focusing on Skull Island here. Let's move into New York a little bit. How did that
well,
play?
before we
Because
get off
that's
Skull Island, the last thing that got that so fucked up out of me. So after there's this one bit that they do in this version, that they do in Peter Jackson's version, and that spoiler not spoiler for the contemporary Godzilla versus Kong, they do in that film as well, where Kong is in the middle of getting royally beat down, and then it culminates with him ripping the thing's jaw wide open to kill it, and then to make sure it's dead, he
yeah,
plays with the
yeah,
jaw.
yeah,
And I'm like, they did that in
yeah,
1933,
yeah, yeah,
and I was just like, I could. And then the thing that got that so fucked up is when later you see that it's not dead yet. T-Rex jaw ripped wide, bleeding and flopping. I was like,
yes, yeah.
did we just did, huh?
The
Like
like everything in that's shocking, but the blood, man, that's
the
what really
the
got me.
flowing blood.
Yeah, that's what really got me in that. Yeah, but you're completely right, man. Before we move on to New York, that yeah, where he plays about with the jaw, that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
And I love that Peter Jackson referenced that too,
Mhm.
and kept it in his version. Basically shot for shot, right?
You'll appreciate the shot in the new one too when you finally see it.
So, did you notice in the again going back to the Peter Jackson version that the design of the dinosaurs in his version were actually a callback to dinosaurs in this version, which is something that he wanted to maintain because obviously by the time he made that, science had learned a lot more about the way dinosaurs probably looked, and especially the T Rexes. But if you really look at the designs in his version, they actually really do look a lot like the designs in this, and especially the brontosaurs as well.
It has
They're
been
very,
forever
very
since I saw the Jackson version, but I seem to recall that the T Rexes did it like a wider skull and had some teeth coming out of their mouth.
yeah, and they're very scaly
Yeah,
and
and
really hard
there's like
scales on the back.
two of them, right? Like that was the twist. Like another one shows
There's
up.
three. There's
I
three
was
in
gonna say,
the
or is it
yeah.
three? Okay.
There's three in the Jackson version, and in the Jackson version, they're actually a family. If you
Okay.
really look at them, you've got the mum, which is the biggest.
Well, clearly.
Then you have the bull, which is the adult male, and then the first one you see is like the kid. That's why he's like quite small.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I really like the way he ties that in and keeps that alive. So New York.
Oh, dude.
So that is obviously the most famous sequence from this film. If you haven't seen Kong, or even as you touched on, right? Like you hadn't seen the whole film before, you had definitely seen some of the New York sequence. That's the most
Absolutely.
famous
The
from
the
him
stuff that
being
surprised me the most was Skull Island specific. Everything
yes,
else, like even if I hadn't seen it, I'd fucking seen it.
right, exactly. How did New York play for you though? Like seeing it come together, and especially having watched the first two acts of the film leading into New York, I think it, and what I mean by that is, I think it is a perfect ending.
Okay, yeah.
Like it's a really, really great ending through the meaning of bringing Kong to New York and out the stupidity of that and trying to play God with that and
And the commodity of it. Like I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
jumped in earlier, like something that made me giggle hard, and I was like, really, $20, huh? Because the
yeah,
there's a guy as he's walking in the theater. These tickets cost me $20. $20 and 20 American dollars in 1933. Like I didn't do the math, but it's a lot more than $20.
yeah, 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 it really is. Yeah. Yeah, dude. What? How did the whole thing play for you? How did that live up to the hype?
I mean, like you said, like it's just it kind of is the perfect end of the film. Like I know maybe it would have been more emotionally impactful if I hadn't been sort of inundated with it. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah,
But and I'm
yeah.
not saying it
So
wasn't emotionally impactful, but it was just like, oh, and now we're at the end of the sequence of the film. Okay, here we go. Like I hope that made some kind of sense right there. But
yeah,
basically, it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like
definitely.
just exactly as you were saying, that it manages to drive home several points very quickly and succinctly, and then build to the crescendo, and the fact that everything is exploitative, and we're not going to get into like crazy different reads from all the different film theories, but it's kind of it's like the white people coming in and taking something away,
Oh
and
yeah,
now
yeah, definitely.
look at the thing that we have that's
Yeah,
ours, even though
yes,
it's not
yeah,
ours.
yeah,
Like and just the literal commoditization of just that. Like now we're not only do we take and now in quotes own this thing, we're going to make money off of it, and it's not going to benefit in any way, shape, or form. And then Kong going, oh, that's what y'all think is gonna happen, and then just busting through
yeah.
shit. And I mean, yeah, and then just the sequence that even if you didn't know what King Kong was as a movie, you've probably seen the image of King Kong on the Empire State. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
definitely. Yeah.
And yeah, and just the genuine emotion that they get out of the stop motion puppet is
Oh,
just
it's incredible. It's absolutely
next
incredible.
level. Like
And
like actual sorrow on this thing's face.
Faye Ray plays her part to perfection there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like all the emotion you get out of Kong, in my opinion, doesn't really work unless she works. And
Exactly. Yeah.
she's incredible. And also, like you saying about the meanings and the theories behind Kong and what that could mean and everything. The same for her character, right? Like especially at the start of the film, but it does carry all the way through
She
it.
was the cleanest wayward girl of all time.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely.
That shit was
But the
hilarious
the
to me.
portrayal of women
Well,
and
yeah.
some of the stuff some of the dialogue that's thrown at her right at the start between
Yeah. I
and
mean, I guess you brought up. We probably should talk about it. It was one of those that like I definitely felt that, but it was one of those that like out of all the outdated stuff, that was just the one that I was almost like, well, of course that's what's there. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like it just
yeah.
I guess I didn't really take any notes on it because it was just like, well, yes, of course. Like that's I don't agree with it, but that's just how they treated women.
Well, also what I think does kind of hold up in a weird way about that though is that she claps back at a lot of it,
Which
and that
I did a couple of times, like take notes about that. Yeah,
yeah, like when they're especially the captain is putting her down and saying about being on the boat and being in trouble and stuff like that. And, she's not just taking it. She's fighting back and, she's got some real punch behind her. And I really love that. I think that really holds up. And what also, I know you said you haven't seen it in a while, But going back and watching Peter Jackson's version, what I love is the first scene on the boat that is being filmed between Fay Ray, not Fay Ray, sorry, and Darrow, played by Naomi Watts, and I can't remember the other character's name, but like the action hero in it, the leading man, if you will. That is, if you listen to the dialogue, that is a complete recreation of the scene between Anne Darrow and the captain.
Okay.
But they made it part of the screenplay.
Okay.
I
get you. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I get what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a really nice callback, a really nice way to get that in there.
Well,
but yeah,
like the earlier on in the film, like to me, like the scene that sort of sums up the whole beginning portion is specifically that scene where it's the test shots, because that's where you get that she is that she is spunky. That even with this dude, like, I don't want no ladies on my ship, see? And it's like, okay, well, I didn't ask to be here either. Feel free to leave. You know, like,
I like that, man. It sets her up. Yeah, the dialogue, if some of the dialogue there definitely doesn't hold up and is outdated. And like I said, Peter Jackson plays about with that, which I quite like. But what I do like is in this film, the way, she does have punch. She does come back. Like you said, she is spunky, and I think that really sets her up as the real hero of this whole piece. And that carries through right into the end, bringing it back to the New York stuff. If we're kind of skipping right to the end, the stuff on the Empire State Building is flawless. The emotion, the fact that she is acting with a stop motion puppet and it's intercut with the planes and everything, like, it's flawless, man.
I mean, the
emotion lives up today.
But like, exactly, it's like her genuine now. Not even no longer afraid, like desperately wanting Kong to get away and knowing that it's going to end the way that it ends. So it's not that she's screaming for help for herself. She's screaming to be like, get off of here, you know? Like, yeah.
It's just
she's so, I don't know, man.
Oh,
I like that's the more of these that we watch, it's just so painfully clear that like so many women of that era were so much more talented than people give them any credit for. Like, and I know that's something that's said all the time, but I mean it in this fashion, where like even though they're working within the confines of what they're allowed to do, they still manage to elevate and be memorable. You know, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. She's the out and out star of this film. I mean, obviously, the animation for Kong is great, and that's what everyone remembers. But Fay Ray this doesn't become the hit; it becomes without her, and she is incredible in this. She is incredible. She is, one of the all-time great female presences on the silver screen. One of the all-time greats. This is one of those performances. There's a reason why not only me and you, but loads of people still talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a reason that we're still making Kong movies. Like,
yes, yeah. There's some real magic in it, and I think she is a massive part of that. I really do. Yeah. All right, dude. Wrapping this up a little bit, is there any trivia that you got into that you'd like to share?
I mean, honestly, I didn't get to do the amount of research I wanted to do. I didn't even really look up a bunch of trivia. I just kind of, as opposed to spending the time on the research, I was like, I think I'm just gonna watch this again.
Man, I am not mad at that at all. Honestly, that's, if I can, I love trivia. You love trivia, but if there's anything I can push people to do is, sometimes just forget about the trivia and the stuff like that. Just really enjoy the film. And if a film captures your imagination as much as this does, really inspires your imagination as much as this does, just go back and watch it. Just live with it. Just breathe it. Just watch it for all the different pieces. It's incredible, man. And also, like, just on a trivia note, the thing with films back then is trivia wasn't recorded there, like as it is today. There is no behind the scenes or any of that stuff.
Didn't care.
No, a lot
the
of
people making them didn't care about their behind the scenes information.
They didn't. They didn't. So a lot of it is rumor and hearsay and stuff like that, and some of it's fun, but who knows if a lot of it's true. Like I was saying about the insect pit sequence, it definitely existed in some form, but who knows what? It really depends on where you get your story from. But man, I am so happy we got to do this. I am even more ecstatic that you loved it
Oh god.
and fell in love with it. I really am. Yeah, it just, what a film. What a film. So to end this, I'm gonna throw a question at you. There
Okay.
is no right or wrong answer, but I gotta ask: original King Kong or original Godzilla?
Oh, that's they're different flavors. I mean, they're monsters, sure, but that's like no. Damn it.
If I'm gonna,
If we're
if
gonna
I
go
say
that,
to you, you can
okay,
throw one on. I tell you, this is how I
I
propose it.
got an
This
answer.
is how I propose it. If you
It's
could
this.
only watch one in the cinema the weekend it come out, if you could go back in time
Okay.
and watch one, your time machine only works for one. Which one you doing?
King Kong.
Agreed. King
I
Kong.
King Kong. And
Yes.
like and my answer was about to be this is this is not to say anything about which film is better, this, that, or the other thing, but I will tell you that I will watch King Kong more than I will watch Godzilla. That's not to say
Oh,
I'm not going
completely
to
agree.
watch
I have.
Godzilla again,
Yeah.
but I will watch King Kong many more times than I will watch
Oh,
Godzilla.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. All right, dude. It's been a good one. I've really enjoyed this. I love going back and watching this film. I've loved discussing it with you. And yeah, go and watch the you're a fan anyway, so go and watch the Peter Jackson version. And
Yeah.
anyone out there listening that enjoys this, give this a rewatch and then go and watch the Peter Jackson version again, knowing what a huge fan of it he was. I think you'll really get a kick out of watching both back to back or over a couple of nights.
It's a long day, but yeah, do
Yeah, but
it.
do it. Yeah, exactly. Dude, thank you so much for joining me once again. Thank you so much to everyone out there listening. And until next week, Horror Hounds, stay very safe.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.